Welcome to another stream here at LightingBot. Today we will be talking a little bit about being a lead lighting artist, specifically also around remake games, probably a little bit about artistic part of being a lighting artist, as well as some challenges that comes with being a lead, so on and so forth. Hopefully some more information about Demon Soul Remake and any questions you might have if you happen to be watching. As usual, please like and subscribe. Stop with the ninja watching, that doesn't cost you anything to support us. So with that said, let us welcome Michael to the stream. Hello, Michael.
Hey, Amit, how you doing, man?
It's good. Sweating a bit here in the UK. It's sweaty, it's humid.
Yeah,
It's
tell
not
me
really
about
good weather.
I'm in Colorado and Denver, and we only have a swamp cooler, so it
So
gets
cool, really.
yeah, it gets pretty hot down here.
So, Michael, tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Yeah, sure. I actually started before that. I was doing civil engineering, and I decided it wasn't for me. I didn't like it, and I saw a commercial on the TV about being working in the game industry, and that was at the Art Institute of Los Angeles. So I switched over, started, going to school there, got my degree, got out in 2008. Then I got a EA internship working at Pandemic Studios. And so I started working there. After that, I worked at smaller companies in the geek games. We were making mostly PlayStation Move games. Um, Moved over, went to the movie industry for a bit. Worked on the Jungle Book movie. That was awesome. That was a really great time. Worked at Treyarch on a couple of Call of Duties. Then switched over, made the move to Austin, where I started working at Bluepoint Games. Actually came in as an environment artist, and then kind of quickly, switched over to being lighting, and then fully lighting after that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And now I'm lead lighting artist at Bluepoint Games.
Cool. So far you worked on a different project, obviously. So do you have any favorites so far that you worked on, or is that like dangerous for you to claim?
A little dangerous. It depends on who's watching. No, I loved all the projects I worked on, but if I had to pick one, it would probably be Demon Souls. Demon Souls, and then the Jungle Book was a lot of fun. Um, those are
So what made it fun?
So for Jungle Book specifically, I was working in the virtual art department, and we're doing creating like scenes in, at the time it was actually Unity, and we were setting up scenes so that director of photography could go in there and set up their shots like virtually with the camera. And then they brought me down to set, which was really awesome. So I was on set working directly with the director and with the with my art director and with my lead, and it was just a great time going down there every day and working on set. That was a really cool experience, and it was about, you don't have to worry about bugs, which was really nice. Just worrying about making everything, try to make it as pretty as possible, and it was cool. It was awesome.
So let's talk a little bit about that before you continue. So how's the experience being on set? What are you normally doing on set when you work on this type of projects?
So we're basically setting up. So we're not making final art. It's like a little bit after previs, kind of, where we're kind of making the, and if you're on a real set or if you're on location with a movie, the director of photography are lining up shots and figuring out the best way where to shoot it, how to set up the shots, what compositionally works really well. And so we did it so that they could do it virtually. So they could take a camera and then virtually move around the camera and see the whole world. So we were building like not just to the camera shots because they weren't always ready yet. Things changed. But it was just, a really cool experience in that it was really just about making the art as pretty as possible. And I love doing that and not having to worry about frames per second and and bugs and flickering and all that kind of fun stuff. But yeah, it was a really cool experience. It was just one. It was different from anything I'd ever done, and it taught me a lot. I got to work with some really great artists there, who taught me a lot and grow my knowledge a lot there.
So what was your main responsibility when you were doing this particular project?
So it was mostly like layouts and lighting. So we would most of the stuff we were doing a lot of it was right when photogrammetry was starting to be a thing. So we did a lot of photogrammetry stuff, and we had a guy who would go out with his what's it called, the the helicopter thing. I can't think of it.
Right.
They go out and they hook up the camera to it, and they fly and they take shots of like cliffs and mountains, and then do smaller shots of rocks and trees and stuff. And we populate the worlds with that, and then we just light it in Maya, and that was pretty much it. It was just layout and lighting, which I love. I love doing both of those things.
So you would still be inside the software when you were doing your type of work?
We were doing all in Maya, and we would get to a certain point, and then we would then get into export it into Unity at the time, and then it would go through another process where it was then set up so that they virtually can move around and see everything.
And then the second choice was Demon's Souls, I believe.
Demon's Souls was awesome. It was really great. It worked with some of the best tools I've ever had. Our engine team at Bluepoint is amazing. They're great, and they make tools that just work so well and save so much time. And it was really like one of those things where iteration was so quick. We have real-time GI, so that allowed us to just iterate so quickly. And if something didn't work out, we get GI updated immediately. We change the sky, GI updates immediately. It was really cool, and it was just like making that game was my kind of style of game that I like working on. So it was just a lot of fun.
So you were doing a remake version of it, is that correct? Or
we did the remake version of Demon's Souls, the first one.
So what's the difference? When you do a remake for an existing game such as Demon's Souls? What? Yeah, just talk us through it. What did you start with, and what did you end up with, and what's the in between?
Yeah, I mean, we start with just basic stuff in the environment, no lighting, no nothing, and it's kind of like a white box kind of setup. And we do some quick iterations in lighting, see where we could get things to, how to make it look nice, and all that kind of stuff, and get a first pass of that. It's kind of like a gray box version. The nice thing about remakes is that you don't have to worry about design. So there's no, hey, we want to change this, we want to change the boss fight, the room is now going to look different. So it was really just making it pretty. That was really what it is, and staying under budget and making sure it runs. So we start off with like a gray box. We do like preliminary, early on lighting for it, and then we go to different areas and we light other areas that, so we get in with our tools. It just made it so quick that we could I was working on like 5 worlds at once, and it was no issue to iterate on. And we just, and then at some point, then when art starts getting in, you go back, you iterate more. And then you always want to make sure with a remake that you have to analyze first what the original makers were trying to create and what they're trying to do with the tech that they had at that time. So, FromSoft people, they're awesome. They did such a great job, and but they made a game 15 years ago. And what we're able to do now is a lot as far as tech wise, goes a long way. So we were really like studying the game, seeing what they're trying to do, trying to emulate and trying to just iterate a little bit upon what they did already and what they were trying to create at the time. So it was really cool. It was also one of those kind of just like sit back, do art, make it try to look as pretty as possible, and then move on to the next area. And then
can't believe it's been that long since Demon's Souls came out. Sometimes it feels like yesterday.
I know. I remember the first time I got that game back in I can't even remember when it came out, like 2008 or something.
Yeah, 2009.
Yeah, I was terrible. There was no easy mode for me, so I did not get too far. I'm always like, turn it to easy mode and let me enjoy the story kind of guy.
I didn't even play it. I was like, I don't want to put myself through this torture. Why am I doing willingly? No, I'm not gonna do this.
Because I don't think I've ever beaten it without cheating. I think it was always really tough. It's you have to be a good hardcore gamer player who knows their stuff, and I'm not that. I'm just a casual, trying to enjoy stories and get through the game kind of
That's
deal.
fair. That's fair. That's fair enough. So when it comes to like Demon Souls type of remakes, what are the rules and limitation of what you can and can't change, basically? So what I'm thinking is, I'm guessing you have to update some of the 3D assets, maybe quality materials. But when it comes to lighting as well, can you change the look completely, like completely different direction? Then, so if I play the original and I play the remake, would it be obvious that okay, you changed the lighting quite a lot?
Yeah, I mean, we try to stick to the original as much as possible. I mean, that's the goal. There's a reason why we're remaking the games, right? Because they're so good at the time, and people have such fond memories of it, and they want to experience again in new current gen tech. So yeah, and we did originally. Bluepoint was a remaster studio, so they did a lot of remasters, and then Shadow of the Colossus was the first remake where we actually went in and remade every single asset, every single tree, material, lighting, everything. Everything was remade, and that was really cool. It was a lot of fun. Shadow was great time. Also, I came on like kind of in the middle of the project. Already, I got there and it looked beautiful, and like the artists there are just so talented. Um, and yeah, I mean, you got to stick to, you want to convey the same kind of mood and feeling that the original creators were trying to convey. I mean, that's really the people who you have your hardcore gamer fans who love it to death, and you have your, okay, I'll play it kind of guys, and then they'll experience it for the first time. And then you have people who don't even know what it is and never experienced it. And, this is truly the first time. And you're trying to make sure that you can make it so that each one of those categories enjoys it and is happy with the product. So it's a lot of iteration. It's a lot of, we have a lot of people at the studio who are really into it, and we take a lot of advice from them, trying to see like what's, how to make sure that we stay current to the, to the original game and all that kind of stuff. Make sure we don't, bend too far away from it.
Right. So let's just take one question at the moment. So from Floyd Games, hi, hello, the live podcast. I have a question. Can a lighting artist from film background land a job in gaming? What's your answer to that question?
100%. Yes. I mean, there's gaming. I feel like gaming is moving more and more towards film quality, and getting someone who has that experience is huge. I mean, when we first started out, there was no lighting artist. I was an environment artist, and I did lighting, I did VFX, I did, some animation, I did modeling, texturing, layout, all that kind of stuff. Like you had to do everything, and not until I got to Treyarch, which was, oh man, like 7 years ago, did I become a lighting artist. And we had a lot of guys from the movie industry there, and they were awesome. They did great. They bring in a whole new, kind of style, how lighting it in a different kind of way that gamers are used to lighting. And with the tech, getting better and better, we could afford more lights, and we could afford more overlapping lights, and we could have, we could set up shots, and we could add rim lighting to areas, and we could add fill to places, and we could do all this stuff now that we weren't able to do before. That really, kind of mends, these two, industries together, in my opinion. And getting someone who knows how to do that, who can light film and stuff, is a great asset.
Cool. Hopefully that answers your question for gay Floyd Gomes. I said games, but it's actually Gomes. Sorry about that. So let's talk a little about being a lead versus senior versus mid versus junior. What are the key differences according to you, and what do you like by being a lead at the moment?
So being a lead is making sure, in my opinion, is making sure that everyone has what they need in order to create what we want them to do. So they have the resources they need. If they're blocked, if they need someone they're waiting on environment to finish this or something, making sure all that stuff is ready and good for them to go is key to being a lead, I believe. And then mentoring is a big deal as well. You can mentor, I mean, a senior can mentor easily also, and a principal lighting artist can mentor easily, but having the ability to be able to mentor as well helps a lot and grows your team, you know. And then the more your team grows, the more you could, you know, maybe concentrate more on, because I do lighting as much as I lead. Um, I don't get any breaks from, you know, from lighting areas. Like I have to do my work and get it done, and I love that. I would not be happy if I wasn't lighting as well as leading. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a cool. It's fun. I mean, it's you know, making sure that everyone is, you know, has what they got in order to make it as beautiful and pretty as possible.
So, sorry. So, what's the general day-to-day for you as a lead doing these type of projects, remakes, and everything? What's the general scenario someone could expect if they were curious of becoming a lead lighting artist in this type of lead? I understand there's a different type of lead, of course, as well. But in your case, what would that be?
Yeah, it's a lot of meetings. That there's definitely a lot of that. A lot of answering emails, a lot of, you know, putting out fires and that kind of thing. But then it's also a lot of, you know, art, and it's a lot of creation. It's a lot of, you know, learning new tools and learning new things and techniques that are out there now, and making sure you're staying, you know, up to date on things that are, you know, are happening in an industry. You can't stay. Things are happening so quickly, and things are changing so quickly, and tech is growing so quickly that you have to be able to stay on top of that kind of stuff and make sure that you're up to date on everything that's happening in the industry with other engines and with other studios, looking to see what other studios are doing. I mean, the game you guys just put out, beautiful stuff, man. Really nice stuff. Um, Take inspiration from that kind of thing, and, you know, run with it. Yeah.
Hmm. So, for the record, for everyone, I have super bad Wi-Fi these days, and I don't have a good agency to take care of it, and I don't do just a lot of problems. So if it starts lagging or I disconnect, Michael will just have to keep talking, and I'll be reconnecting in a few minutes, basically. But I have another question for you from Alejandro Palagano. How do you approach EV values, exposure values, and auto exposure in this kind of projects? Interesting
So
and unique question.
yeah, we try to keep everything physically accurate. So we take real world values. We measure. We have light meters that we go outside and we take measurements of clouds and sky and stuff like that. And we do a lot of you know, a lot of exploring on, you know, whether it's you know, Wikipedia or something like that, where they give you most of your values that you're looking for, whether it's a nighttime or daytime scene full sun, or if it's a, you know, interior scene or whatever. And we try to keep to that as much as possible. And then once we get that, then we have the creative freedom to then, you know, expand upon it. Maybe break some stuff. Maybe, you know, not stick to the, you know, it's a bright sunny day. It's 120,000 lux for the sun. You know, 100 to 125,000, 100, 120,000, or, you know, not having to stick to the numbers. Maybe it looks better if it's, you know, half the, you know, brightness, and it just makes it moodier. You know, being able to know that you can break those, you know, rules is a good thing. It's not just, you know, you have a set, you know, you go to Wikipedia and it says this is the number you put in, and this is the lux value, and this is, you know, the brightness of the sky and all that kind of stuff. Breaking that, I mean, real world stuff is not as, let's just say, as pretty as it can be. You know, when you're in a game, you want to make it as nice as possible. So breaking that stuff could make it look even better, I think.
Yeah, that's cool. So, in terms of this, then, of knowing to break rules, if you were to give, I don't know, 3 to 5 tips, advices to people in terms of skill, understanding of lighting, composition, even cinematography skills, what would you recommend someone to be able to learn and improve upon to
Like
be a
what
good?
sources you mean? Like where to go to for this kind of stuff?
Yeah, just skill set. You don't necessarily have to think about specifically where to go, but just like what are the skills If you were to hire someone, what are the 5 skills you're looking for, basically?
So I'm looking for someone who could. Big things I look for when lighting is shape, contrast, and depth. Whether it's contrast through color, whether it's contrast through value, I'm looking for mainly those 3 things. Being able to lead the player in a whether it's a still piece or whether it's a movie is very important as well, especially in games. You have to be able to. The player needs to go. You don't want the player sitting there wondering where to go next, and lighting plays a huge part in that, and making sure that they always know where to go, where's the next area, what's important, what's not important, highlighting things that are a little bit more important, shadowing things that are a little less important, things like that. And I look at a lot of composition is very important. Well, it's in setting up a shot and making sure compositionally feels well. I think looking at like photography is so important. That's always a huge plus for me. Someone who dabbles in photography and understands it, and someone who like I get constantly like photography magazines are awesome in my opinion. And setting up shots and they show you best ways to set up different shots are just great, and they're an incredible resource. Um, yeah, I mean, those are probably the main things I look for. Also, someone who has good communication skills and you could get along with. I can't stress how important it is when we're looking for someone that we'll give interviews to people who we feel can artistically is there, but then when we have live interviews, it's always about, can we get along with this person? How will they mesh with the team? Um, is this the right fit for us? It's just as important as your portfolio, in my opinion. So making sure that you could get along with everyone, and everyone is happy to have you on the team. You contribute, you're a good communicator. Communication between yourself and your other lighting artists, but also communication between yourself and other disciplines. I mean, being able to collaborate with environment artists and designers and even engineers, and making sure that you guys put out the best possible, you know, prettiest looking thing you could do is key. And if you keep your head down and you try to just work by yourself, you could get it done. But it's just with collaboration, you get so much more out of it. Being on the same page with everyone else on the team is so important. And yeah, I mean, those are pretty much things we look for. Communication is key a lot.
So let's talk a little bit about communication, especially considering you're a lead as well. So, what are the communication typical downfall you might have experienced that could make some issues or some challenges because someone maybe haven't learned the soft skills necessary to navigate their profession or the roles, right? For example, critique sessions, feedback sessions, and there's a communication process there, there's a process there, or let's say there might be some office politics, there's navigating that as well. There's the art director, and then there's dealing with the art director and the lead. How do you do it? There are some challenges there also quite often. So stuff like that. What are your thoughts and experience there, and making sure that some of the lighting artists that are watching, or even artists, what are your advices or thought process there in trying to master?
Yeah, I mean, you said it. I mean, being able to take critique and run with it and be happy with it, and respect other people's opinions about your stuff, and you know knowing that there's always going to be someone out there who knows more than you do, even as lead, even as a principal, even an art director. I mean, there's so much talent out there, and respecting that and being able to go to people and say, hey, does this look good? What do you think? What are your thoughts? What can I change about it? You know, that sort of thing is so important. And getting people involved and getting as many eyes as you can on it, and trusting your leadership and your art director is so important. I have an art director that I trust completely. And if he says this looks good, then it looks good. If he says, no, we got to change that, and I'm like, okay, we got to change that. So being able to take that kind of criticism and critique and run with it and be able to improve upon it is also so important.
Cool. So I like to include the viewers when they leave comment during the conversation. So Alejandro is saying, I completely agree, a baseline in reality, and then break the rules when needed a bit. And I think a lot of people, I have a lot of students in my mentorship because we mentor in lighting board as well. And we have a lot of students with like, okay, do I have to follow this to the point? And like, you have to follow this to the point until you understand it. And then once you understand it, then I don't care what you do. If it looks good, it looks good, but you have to start on the base and then you have to work onwards from there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So he says, I agree. Reality does not look as people as think. I also agree on that. And he also agrees on communication and keeping updates is so underrated. So would you agree that a lot of the times when a project or a game or a team struggles, falls behind, or has issue, it's often because of communication or someone forgetting to share something or lack of transparency or stuff like that?
For sure. It happens so often. And you just get in these modes where you're like, especially now with, COVID and working, remotely and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we try to keep, I try to keep our channel, we have a channel with the lighting artists and try to keep it as active as possible. And if it's something that, there's a question, hey, we need this environment artist, when is he going to be ready with this stuff? I try to get my guys to ask those questions themselves so that they interact with these people, with other people, and make like relationships with other people. And I have a great team. They're amazing, and they're great at communication, and it's awesome to work with them. And they make my job so much easier. Um, and yeah, I mean, communication, like you said, is so important. I mean, things could, if you're not talking to your VFX artists, you're not talking to your designers, you're not talking to your environment artists, producers, whatever it is, things go wrong, and then you have to redo it, and then time is taken up, and you wasted a day, 2 days, 3 days, whatever it was, trying to scramble and get back on track. So yeah, communication so important. Yeah.
And how many people do you have in your team at the moment, by the way?
So I have 2 people on my team. At one point, we had 3 for a little bit of time. We're looking possibly soon to grow a little bit more. It was interesting. We did.
Apply today. You heard it here first. Just kidding.
I don't think we have any open positions now, but I mean, if you have you're passionate, so I'll always look at it, and if when we need somebody, I would go back and get hold of those people who ever applied early. So, yeah, if you've got something, even if there's no position open, apply for it. But yeah, I mean, when I got to Bluepoint Games, I was an environment artist, and I was responsible for a lot of the cinematics. So I was doing that in the cinematics early in the game. So they weren't made out yet. They weren't created yet. We had to create them from scratch. And then I got to do some cinematics that were done, and they had game lighting, environment lighting on them, but they didn't have character cinematic lighting. So we got to do that. That was awesome. And I mean, like I said before, there were no lighting artists until the movie industry had it for a little bit, but we didn't catch up to that for not till maybe 7-8 years ago. So it was always just, okay, get it in there and crank it out and get something that works okay, and you're good to go. So now it's so important. I mean, we spend days and days on working on shots and making sure that they look as good as they can, and they look right, and they look according to what the way art direction wants them to be. All that stuff is just so important. Yeah.
So, being a lead in this work condition where you have remote work, how is that treating you, by the way, in terms of I'm assuming using Slack or something, right?
Yeah, I love it. I'll be
Yeah.
honest with you. I really love it. I spend so much time in my life driving to and driving back from work that I probably could have worked an extra year at this point. So getting to work, waking up in the morning, I go downstairs to my basement, I got my office, working on, easy to start, and you're at full capacity at that point. You're working on stuff. You don't have to worry about traveling. I mean, there's still communication between, stuff that doesn't have to do with work all the time. I mean, that stuff still happens, like those, the coffee talks and stuff like that. But I mean, for the most part, you just get to put your head down and work on your stuff. And, you know, when you need some help, you talk to people. When you don't, you could, tune out and just do your thing.
Makes sense.
I love it. I actually moved from Austin to Denver so that, because we really like Denver and it was a really nice move for us. And I'm so happy. Our company is the hybrid system now. So you could choose to work in-house or you could choose to work at home remotely. And it's been the best thing for me, for sure.
Makes sense. So Nitium Gaming, I guess you can go and apply and hope for the best.
Go for it, man.
There are quite a few people who watch and always looking for something to do. Alejandro is just joining the conversation, saying, when you're talking about respect other people's opinions, I completely agree. And it's also beneficial for you. A new set of eyes of your whip fork is often vital to let you see mistakes you may too accustomed to. So, as a lead lighting artist, who do you go to when you're looking to improving at feedback in personally or generally speaking?
I will go to anybody. I'll go to people on my team. I'll go to my art director. We have the concept artist I go to a lot. We have a lead material artist who I go to a lot. I mean, anyone who's willing to take a look at my stuff is always. I don't care what position you are. People, can enjoy art as much as anybody else, and they understand things. And we have awesome artists at our company, and they're great, and I respect everyone's opinions. And there wouldn't be anyone at the company I wouldn't ask to check out my stuff. That I would be like, yeah, no, I wouldn't trust that guy. I would take advice from anybody.
Makes sense. So, in terms of the Demon's Souls remake and doing the lighting, would you say that it was more challenging because you had to stay true to it, or would you say it was easier because you kind of had already a reference to follow?
I would say for that specific game, they did a great job on it originally, and it was pretty easy staying true to the original. Um, it's a dark and gritty game, right? I mean, there are times when you want to make things a little bit brighter, but you understand that this was the point of the game, and this is the genre and what they wanted it to look like, and you stick to it, and it works. I mean, it was really easy. Like I would go into areas and start lighting from scratch, and then go check the original and be like, oh my god, they put a torch in the same exact plate. Same exact spot I put a torch, and a torch over here and a torch over here. It was just like very easy to work with, and in that specific project, it was pretty easy following the original story, the original lighting. Yeah.
'Cause it is a pretty for every ninja watcher out there, because there are quite a few watching. I haven't seen that many likes yet on the YouTube. So how about you click like so it matches the viewers? How about that? Thank you so much for doing that. Lazy. So said that. So we have this opportunity to obviously look at your portfolio a little bit, so that we could take some time and have a view on that as well to break up the conversation a bit, while I read up a question.
Yeah.
So regarding Floyd Gomes asked, regarding communication, as there are many big gaming studios in Europe and all countries speak different language. So with your experience, do you prefer communication in English or the local language, for example, in France and Germany?
I'm sorry. Say that one more time. I'm looking. I was reading the.
So the optimized version of this question is: do studios prefer English, or do individuals in the studio prefer communication in the local language, such as French or German, if you're able to speak it?
So mostly everyone's speaking English. I don't know how the hiring works exactly, but I don't know if um, they. I don't even know whether we can hire abroad or not. That's a good question. But yeah, mostly everyone is English speaking for the most part, and we do. I think we worked. I haven't, but I think other departments have with concept artists and stuff where there is a language barrier, but they work out fine. Yeah.
So, if you're allowed to say it or not, probably not. But someone is asking, does Demon's Souls come out on PC, the remake?
That I can't talk about.
Maybe if you're lucky. Who knows? A lot of people, I think, eventually will probably one way or another. Like most of the PlayStation games, they eventually come on PC now these days. So let's hope for that. So let's look at your art station a little, and let's have you walk through some of the pieces you want to walk through, and kind of explain the purpose behind it, the workflow, any piece you find like it was a useful experience or a huge challenge or something you think is worthwhile sharing.
Yeah. Let's see. So this area, this is the tutorial area. It's where you start in the beginning and you can never go back. Demon Souls, you could go back to different worlds and explore more. And this tutorial is once you're done, you're done. So getting the right look for that was, key. We wanted to nail it down. We wanted to make sure everything that we were doing was faithful to the original game, and improve upon where we can, with the tech that we have. So in areas that, like where they couldn't get away with it. I mean, we were like, I remember at one point we were flipping geometry underwater to make it look like reflections, coming out and stuff. I mean, so that's, long time ago, a lot of stuff you couldn't do at the time, and just being able to have the new tech and be able to do things that you couldn't do then was great. But yeah, I mean, we wanted to tell a story with everything that we're doing, and we want to be able to invoke emotion into the character and contrast, like I said before, contrast, shape, depth, all important stuff. And that was really key, was getting this area at first to look the way we wanted it to look. And from there, kind of just, mend it all together. It wasn't, it was pretty fluid after that. I mean, to be honest, we have a great you know, non-work ethic where it's like we don't have to crunch unless you want to crunch. No one asks you to crunch ever. And if you want to, improve on your stuff and you need to, you're behind or whatever, you could crunch if you want to. But we really try to make sure that everyone is, happy and not burnt out, and be able. We feel that you get your best work done when you're happy and when you're feeling creative. When you're burnt out, it's just so hard to get something that looks good on screen. It's a terrible thing. I think it's hard in this industry when you do a lot of crunch.
So in some of these screenshots so far, did you ever add extra light? So what I'm saying extra light, I mean just commonly just more than one light. A lot of people will use, for example, a point light without shadow and the flame, and then a spotlight to kind of spread it out. For example, are you using this type of techniques, or are you adding extra light to fill light in the middle because the main light doesn't go this far, and if you did, it would be over bright, so you would add a fill light without shadow on? Like, is there any of these things happening in your workflow in this game?
Oh yeah, I mean we had, I want to say, I think at the time it was 225 lights that we had on at a time, and we had a lot of times where we had 225 lights on at a time. I mean, it's almost working, like I said before, like movie style, like trying to make sure, for the most part, we're like, we have shadow lights, non-shadow lights. We, where we need the shadows, we use them. When we don't, we don't. We have fill lights going on everywhere, rim lights, everything. And we really try to keep like each area kind of like, we set up compositionally where we think is where the player is going to come in and enter and see what this room looks like, and then try to light from there and try to make it look pretty as possible then from all areas. But yeah, we have tons of lights in all these places. If I had the light icons on, you would just see light icons everywhere. So yeah, we like I said, our engine team is awesome, and the engine that we work in is great, and we could afford to do so many things that a lot of times you can't afford to do. Um, but yeah, this area was a lot of fun. This was where we kind of settled on, okay, what color our torch is going to look like, what color is bounce going to look like from the sky, and like I said, it's a dark and it's a gritty game, and I don't think we had one situation where it was a bright blue sky outside. It's always dark and gritty and stuff.
So is that the case you did some lighting in terms of EV and exposure? It's correct that you go, okay, this is too realistic in the sense it's too bright. The light's bouncing out in places too much, and even though it might be correct, you decided to darken it down. Was there a lot of scenarios in this type of game? Demon's Souls, I would imagine, happens a lot.
A lot, definitely a lot. Yeah.
So what's the solution then? What techniques, what methods are you using to
So
counter that?
yeah, so what we always do is start off physically accurate. And then from there, we'll break it a little bit. If it feels a little bit too dark, we'll change the exposure a little bit. Maybe we'll dim down the lights a little bit. I mean, there's so many things now. I mean, like as far as like physically accurate values when it comes to lights, you can find a lot of information out there on electrical lights, light bulbs and stuff like that. But when it comes to torches and fires and all that kind of stuff, there's not a lot of information out there. So we were kind of like, kind of working in and making sure that we got everything looking and feeling correct in the EV that what should be for this area, and make sure that everything felt natural. Like, I mean, you could find a candle, stuff like, online that says a candle is 10 lumens, right? But you get in game, you put a candle there and 10 lumens, you don't see anything. So we would cheat every once in a while to try to make sure that it felt accurate, but at the same time, it also looked nice.
Okay, that's good. I think that's the hardest part for a lot of people at the moment that I talk to.
Yeah, it's getting that, working your way towards physically based values and trying to tread that line between what you can break and what you can't break is important.
Talk about the physical values, if you don't mind. I will just do a product dropped while we're at it. We do have a course here at LightingBot for people who are interested in that. It's like you learn about physical values and everything. It's on courses.lightingbot.com for anyone who wants to watch that. So that's a good place to start if you want to understand what we are talking about, because I know it's not normal. A lot of people, they just do artistic lighting, so they just go for the feel and they don't really understand exposure. So head over there if you want to learn some more.
Yeah, I can't tell you how important it is. When we first got a hold of me, I hadn't heard of LightingBot, and I checked it out. It is an awesome resource. And he did not tell me to say that, I promise. It is really, really, really great. And I subscribe now, and I'm checking it out. There's no one that's no one that wouldn't benefit from things that are on the site. So yes, I totally agree. Check out his stuff for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that, even though I didn't ask you to do that, but thank you.
You owe me $10 later.
Okay, fine. I give you $10. So your pieces, what I want people to pay attention to on the thumbnails is the difference in value and color tone and harmony. So what I'm saying is, if you look at like the certain cyan green tone, there's a blue tone, there's a bit of an orange tone, and there's a darker green. So there's a lot of subtle differences in the lighting, in the color. So I also want to talk a little bit, because you kind of mentioned that in the previous piece, that you had to decide the sky color and the torch color. So why not pick a piece that kind of lets you talk a little bit more about that, because color is underrated. I feel a lot of lighting artists, they undervalue or don't really understand color because it's often too saturated, or like it's over the top often, I've noticed. So Demon's Souls is a good example of just on the sweet spot. It's just there.
Yeah, it was a lot of iteration. It was a lot of making sure. And I say the hardest thing for us actually, is making sure that it looks good in all different screens. Like we have, our screens at work, and we get to a place that looks great, and then we go in the conference room, you can't see anything. It's like getting, being able to, we always like, work off of a few TVs and stuff like that, and making sure we take screenshots, we check our monitors, always trying to make sure that it fits and looks correct. But we also have situations where we don't even calibrate TVs, just because there's a lot of people out there who don't calibrate TVs, so they just go out of the box. But yeah, getting color and value and all that kind of stuff correct is hard. It's you don't want to go. It depends on the style of the game, really, and you don't want to go If it's more realistic, you want more muted colors. If it's more, fantasy and, you could push the boundaries of the colors a little bit, then yeah, I mean, there's this one, let's see, like this area, um, it's saturated, and we tried, desaturated. We tried a little bit more saturated. We landed on this, and we felt like this was the right tone for this type of environment, and it just, we with these lights, we dabbled with it in blue, and we dabbled with it in white, and we ultimately settled on this color. So yeah, I mean, not going over the top and not being too saturated could kill the scene a lot. And you have to make sure that you know, what I do is I'll light a scene and then I'll come back to it 2 weeks later. And it's always something that I learn from it. There's always like, wow, that's a lot more saturated than I remember it being, or that's a lot darker, it's a lot brighter, or whatever it is. So I highly recommend also doing that. Don't sit on a scene for forever trying to, do the tiny, minute little, changes to it and trying to figure out, like, everything at once. Go back, clear your head, work on another scene, come back afterwards, look at your new scene with fresh eyes that you haven't seen for 2 weeks, and analyze it better then. Because once you work on a scene for too long, it just starts to turn into mush, and you don't see the issues, you don't see what looks good, you don't see the problems anymore. It's one of those things that you can get trapped in for sure.
So we have a question while you're doing this, so let's multitask because it might be relevant. How do you deal with albedo is just being too dark or saturated? You got an internal tool or scene for artists so they can test their models / materials?
So yeah, we have an ability to see what is too dark, what's too bright, and then we could go in albedo mode and check to see if things are too saturated, all that kind of stuff. And we have an awesome material team in there. I can't even remember if I ever had to go in there and be like, "Hey, dude, this is really dark." They just keep to it, and they're smart. They know what they're doing, and it makes life easier. Because if you take a scene and you put in materials, even if it's a gray box scene, and you make it a little bit darker, and then take a screenshot, make it a little bit brighter with the same lights, take a screenshot, there's going to be massive differences in the scene. So that stuff is really important, making sure that everything is, as PBR as it can be, but be able to break it if you have to as well. There's always that.
So what's the pipeline been when you did Demon Souls? So you can keep obviously showing the portfolio as we talk about this. The pipeline in Demon Souls versus say another project that doesn't have a remake or versus a remake. Where do you start? Because do you start on Greybox on projects that start from scratch? Did you start Greybox in this project? What's the process? What's the lighting pipeline? Considering you're a lead as well.
Yeah, it's essentially we start with the gray box. So that helps us a lot. We could start as early as possible. When you're working on a game where, there's no design yet laid out and there's no gray box yet, you're just waiting. And lighting and VFX are always the last to work on that area. And we always give ourselves time, after environment's done to go in there and fix anything that needs to be fixed, finish up any last touches that we have to do, that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, we start with remakes. You could start, from day one almost, and then get in some temp lighting there, some previous stuff. Try to get the feel and mood that you want to convey. Something that obviously that stays true to the original, and then try to if you can improve upon it, and keep iterating and keep going back and forth. And eventually as art gets more involved and they start doing their things, you start adding in lights that rim lights and fill lights, things that you wouldn't do in the first pass. Usually what we try to do is set up a sun in the sky, make sure that that's correctly balanced, and then from there we use key lights. So whether it's the sun or in a room, if it's a fireplace or whatever it is, work with that. And then as things progress more, then we start to add in more stuff, and eventually we have everything looking the way we want it to, and we have extra time to spare after environment's done to finish up anything that we didn't get to work on before.
So, which of these that you have on your ArtStation portfolio was the quickest to light, and which one was the longest to light?
That is a
I
good
know.
question. Let's see.
I thought I'd get some visuals to these questions this time around.
Yeah. Um, the easiest to light. I
But
would
the quickest, maybe that's easier to say.
Yeah, I would say things that are maybe that have more of a sun in the sky intensity, higher sun in the sky intensity than other things, where you could get away with, using sun and sky for most of the areas. Those are definitely easiest to work with. When you're working with nighttime scenes, interior spots, stuff like that, you have to be more methodical. You have to be able to um, take your time, make sure that you're putting in the right lights. You have to in a game, you got to be able to look 360 degrees, so you have to make sure it looks good from all directions. And when it's an outside scene and you're using a sun and sky and it lights up most of the stuff, you can get away with just like highlighting important areas, and maybe if you have negative lights, decreasing in areas, and um, filling in. We have a lot of fill lights in here, trying to make sure that everything is not black, and it's somewhere in that you know black to mid-tone value that we want to go to. um, yeah, that was weird that my thing just changed shots. Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot to work on to make sure that everything feels good, but these outside scenes that are daytime tend to go faster, I would say.
So, when you talk about fill lights, how many do you have in environment, and how do you deal with, say, uh, things brightening up to more specular effects showing up? I'm assuming you might have a tech that turns it off, though. What are the challenges that comes with
So
adding those kind of things?
Yeah, so we have really cool stuff. We have what we call GI lights that are only contributing to GI. You get no specular from it, anything like that. You just get GI, fill. Those we use constantly everywhere because they're practically free, and they just help raise the intensity of an area without having to go in and change UVs and stuff like that in this one spot. Um, those are a lot. Those are constantly in here lighting up areas. Then we use, where we want highlights to be, and when we don't want to see specular stuff like that, we'll use those in areas. And then we move. We use a lot of spotlights to fill up areas, point lights. We have a good tool set to be able to get these things looking proper and correct. And um, yeah, the GI lights are killer though. Those are awesome.
Okay, that makes sense. So this was the quickest one. So which one is the longest one? So how, did you say how many days, how many weeks did it take to do this?
To do this whole level,
Yeah.
um, it took a while. It was a while. It took I don't even know the time. It has to be uh, a couple months at least.
And what's the average time to do lighting on a demon soul level, and also generally speaking for your projects?
So usually what we'll do is lighting goes a little bit faster than environment. We don't have to create assets and stuff like that. So we're usually running behind environment. So when environment needs time to catch up to areas, we'll jump on another area and work on it, and then so on. So there's a lot of jumping between stuff. So it's really hard to determine like how long we worked on an area, but yeah, months. It was a big game, and there's a lot of stuff to light, and we went. It's a moody game, and it's a dark game, and you want to make sure the player can still see where he's going and know what to do. So yeah, it took time. Yeah.
So what do you think is contributing to Dark's Demon Souls look and feel that is dark and gritty, but still it's bright and visible?
So we had areas. Let me see. Uh,
I know, very difficult questions, but hey,
no, it's
part
good.
part of
Uh,
my job.
so like we use like this area is it's a nighttime scene, and getting the look of it, making it feel like it's nighttime. We really try to stay away from getting those feelings of night for day and stuff like that, like where it's if you're not looking at the sun or the moon, then you're not quite sure what time it is. We try to stay away from that and make sure that always feels right. But yeah, this game uses shadow just as important as light does, and there are areas where where it's specifically dark just so you fall in a hole. You have to watch out for that kind of thing, and that's the way the game was. And like adding shadow cards in areas to darken stuff to make sure that you get in those traps is part of the game. So that was
So
different.
for the uninformed, what are you saying when you say shadow cards?
We use like we could use a cube or just a plane or something and add a shadow caster material to it, and then it will cast the shadow. It doesn't render in game. It just casts the shadow. So we use that a lot to get to create darker areas, to create contrast. Um, yeah, those are used all over. We even use them for bugs where light's leaking and stuff like that.
So basically, you don't have an object, but you want to darken something, so you just put in a light blocker, basically, the cast shadow to create the shadows, essentially.
Pretty much, yeah.
I use a lot of shadow decals too.
Yeah, and they're handy because you want to have that full spectrum, right? You want to be able to brighten things, you want to be able to darken things. If you're only brightening things, you only have half the the spectrum of what you can actually do, what you can use as far as lighting value. So having the ability to darken things is so important.
It's beautiful lighting, by the way.
Thank you so much, dude. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I'm gonna go and cry afterwards.
I've seen your stuff too, so you don't need to cry. Your stuff is great.
I like the there's a subtle nuances in the color here as well. It's like orange, then it's green. There's some, there's some yellow tint to it. It's a very. Is there a lot of processing effects when you do your lighting at the end to get this feel of look, or are you trying to add a lot of light that communicates with the fog to get this type of look?
Yeah, we do. There's a lot of color grading. There's a lot of I try to. I don't know. I kind of just switch in between this. Before I was always under the mindset that I want to use lighting as much as possible to convey what I'm trying to convey, and then use color grading as little as possible. And
That's where I am.
yeah, so then I got to start using like programs like DaVinci, and DaVinci is awesome. And you can do so much in it. And I've only used it for personal work, but maybe not going as far with it in the lighting and trying to use color grading. That's where I'm kind of working on my personal stuff right now, at least right now, which is cool also. I mean, it's easy to iterate, because you're working with more muted lights and you could just easily change it in the grade. But yeah, I'm a fan of both. I've always loved to just get as much as I can out of the lighting, but DaVinci's powerful, man, and that's a really cool program, and it's free. So
yeah, I'm actually making a DaVinci color grading course for lighting artists. Actually, as part of
that's awesome. That's really
yeah.
cool.
Just takes a lot of time to do it properly, so it's a bit slow.
Yeah.
It's a powerful software for sure. The reason I'm making course for it because it taught me about color very quickly, more than other things like understanding and seeing color. So because of the graphs and everything you see when you do the grading, it taught me very quickly to spot colors and how it relates scientifically. And that's why I think it's important, even for training purposes, to kind of get a grasp around that and use it. That's why.
100%. That's totally correct. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's not. I mean, all the. I loved working on all the areas. It was just, like I said, a fun game to work on, and the team was awesome, and it was just perfect setup for me working on Demon Souls.
That's cool. Now, is there any other piece that you want to show that was like had a good learning outcomes and challenges?
Let's see.
Maybe you want to talk about Unreal Engine 5 and the challenges of doing Unreal Engine 5 lighting pieces.
Yeah, sure. That's so I started off on Unreal Engine 5 kind of doing like just still shots, just still image. Whenever I'm trying to do a scene, whether it's for work or personal stuff, I'm always trying to tell a story, whether it's through layout, whether it's through lighting. You always want to try to tell a story. It's just more interesting and gets the viewer more interested in the piece. So yeah, I mean, there's Unreal Engine allows you to do so many things, right? I mean, you could buy things on the marketplace. So much of it is free. There are tutorials. You could watch tutorials for days. It's a really cool tool to be able to do that kind of stuff. You could work on it for free in your own personal stuff. It doesn't cost anything. I mean, most other engines cost at least I think Unity is like 1,500 or something like that. So it's really great resource, and I'm always trying to, like I said, tell a story. So originally I always did like still images. Um, let's see, like this. This is one of the first ones I worked on, and I'm trying to tell a story, and it's a still image, and I like it, but I wanted to get more out of it. I wanted to see like how much can I learn about this program, and how far can I push it. So after doing a bunch of still images, I went to then doing, okay, now let's do, one that has a little bit of a movie in it, one that tells more of a story, because you have lightning flashes, and you can't show lightning flashes on a still image, right? It won't look like a lightning flash. It'll just look like something's really bright in your scene. So being able to do that, learn that kind of thing. I mean, I always feel like the more the story you can tell, and like I said, I play games for stories. So like the more of a story you can tell, it just makes a piece so much more interesting and so much nicer, because you're invoking so many emotions. It's not just about art; it's about feeling, about story. It's about so many different things. So then I started doing that, and then got to a point now where I wanted to now add in audio. So I started adding in audio into shots, and trying to get that looking right, and first time ever working with audio, and it's awesome. Unreal's easy to use, and there's so many tutorials out there, and I'm working on pieces which not only just are movement pieces like this, but are like short story films. Starting with one that's really short, like 2 minutes long, but it gives its own challenges, and it's awesome, and I love learning new things and trying to figure out how to do things. And yeah, I mean, I think the most you can learn from engines, whether it's your own proprietary engine, whether it's free engine online, whether it's a paid one, there's so many good things from so many different places, and knowing how to do that kind of stuff and improving on it is so important. And
Yeah.
Unreal's been great.
It's really cool. I love it. I haven't reached well, I don't have time because I'm making content all the time, so I haven't really had the opportunity to show anything except my latest work, unfortunately. But this is really good. In regards to tutorials, because we are already finished for our streams, so before we end, because we're talking about courses and tutorials, let me just quickly introduce you guys, because you guys keep asking in private, so I don't want to stress. I'm just going to do it live for you guys. You see the screen, right? So the stuff he's talking about, and the stuff I was talking about earlier, it's just it's a cheap course. Teaches you about fundamental lighting, understanding equipment materials, correcting the materials, setting exposure, working on volumetrics, light bleeding, post-processing, understanding emissive extra lighting, different EV time of days, artistic lighting, changing curves, understanding how to look at painting, and understanding how it relates to lighting, how a painting can train your eye, shape and form, candle principle, Pocini effect, game optimization, the danger of fog, and other stuff. Some testimonials if you're not sold yet. Me as main mentor. If you join the mentorship, there is people who can help you out. Have a look. There's different course structure. As you can buy the course. If you are like a lot of people who needs some feedback, some critique, some more mentorship, there's 2 different mentorships. There's 2 months and 5 months. However, people who are a part of the Lighting Bot community, if you message me on Discord, you get a much better offer, including multiple mentors, text feedback on a weekly basis, live mentorship, and you get the extra month for free as well, and doesn't cost you anything extra. So you can always message me for that. If not, if you're broke, There's a free Unity URP lighting course, and there's a free Unreal lighting. It's true as well. So it's not like there isn't free stuff as well. So hopefully that answers your questions. Cool. So, Michael, any lasting words from you before we departure into I don't know where we're going, but before I talk to you a bit in private to finalize our talk, do you have any final things you wish to say to the community of fellow artists?
Yeah, I mean, keep going at it and keep doing as many scenes as you can. And do, if you're interested in just lighting, then get a scene that you could relight. If you're interested in layout as well, get a package that you could then lay out your own scene for. I mean, there's so many different ways you can go. Knowing what good composition looks like and how to create a good composition is such key in creating this kind of stuff and making it look pleasing to the eye. So study that kind of stuff, photography, study that. There's so many things out there to do, and this is a relatively new, like I said, new kind of skill set as being a just a lead or a lighting artist. So there's things that aren't even out there yet that you just have to come up on your own. So just learn and do as much as you can and see what works and see what doesn't.
So last question on the last pieces you showed. How much time do you spend constructing the environment as well as lighting it?
So I get very impatient, and I have a wife and 3 kids, so I don't have a lot of extra time. So I was telling you before, my kids went away for the summer and my wife went away, so it was just me and the dog here, and I was just working as much as I can. I would say a typical piece, probably like 2 to 3 days.
There's still a lot though.
What's that?
Still a lot of time to constructing the environment. That's the part I'm tired of doing on my own.
Yeah, it takes time. I mean, it's
composition, so many things that goes into it.
Learning blending materials, how all that kind of stuff works, and there's a lot to learn, and you can only iterate more and become better and do more on top of what you did before. It's a great tool.
Other stuff for your viewers, I forgot to tell you guys, we have a portfolio review on the 16th of September. Join the Discord server, paste your link or portfolio, and we go through it, and we focus on the lighting and composition. There might be some other people joining to help out. Maybe I'll ask Michael to join as well. Who knows? So we'll try and do that. And as usual, I see a lot of new viewers. Please, there's a lot of interviews, there's a lot of content. I do apologize, I don't have time to make clips anymore, so you just have to click and skim through and hope you find the golden content. There's a lot of golden content out there. Each interview, each conversation is unique, so hopefully you give other people the chance and watch their content as well. Michael, I'm going to talk a little bit to you after we close the stream in private. Everyone, thank you for the questions, thank you for interaction. It was really nice to see everyone, new faces, new names. Thank you so much, and have a good Sunday, I suppose, and see you soon, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks so much, guys.